3 months ago, my wife Georgia ignored every red flag as her son Darius quietly destroyed the only thing keeping me alive, my therapy dog Rex. I trusted them both, believing our family could heal. But instead, I was left gasping on the driveway in a panic attack while Darius mocked me. That night, Rex disappeared. Now Darius sits isolated in a treatment center. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. When I married Georgia, I thought I'd finally found peace after war. Her son Darius seemed distant, but I assumed time and trust could bridge us. Rex, my service dog, anchored my days. His steady gaze calmed the storms in my chest. One evening, I found Darius staring at Rex, eyes cold. Georgia laughed it off, calling it teenage sulking, but that moment lingered, buried under smiles. I shouldn't have listened to the chill that gripped me. Georgia's sister Helen noticed at first how Darius flinched every time Rex barked. He hates that dog, she whispered once at dinner. I defended him, clinging to hope that he'd come around, but his sarcasm turned sharper, his eyes more calculating. Rex had stopped sleeping near the stairs. Avoiding Darius' side of the house, I chalked it up to adjustment. In reality, the silent war had already begun, and I was the last to see it. The first real sign came during a panic episode. I reached for Rex and he wasn't there. Georgia said Darius had taken him out for a walk. Hours passed. When they returned, Rex seemed shaken. I asked what happened. He chased a raccoon. Darius smirked, but Rex trembled, tail low. Marcus, my old friend, raised a brow. He's scared, he said. Still, Georgia waved it off. I should have trusted Marcus' instincts over her excuses. One morning, I found Rex's harness torn and shoved under the porch. Darius said it had snapped during a walk. I fixed it, heart racing. That evening, Helen called. She saw Darius yelling at Rex near the park, gripping the leash like a noose. I confronted Georgia. She denied it, said Helen always exaggerated. My trust splintered. Why defend him so blindly? That night, I double-locked the back gate. I didn't feel safe anymore. Darius started mocking my breathing exercises, mimicking my panic attacks at dinner. Georgia scolded him, but lightly, like it was a joke. Helen grew colder toward them. At night, Rex began sleeping beside my bed again, poor resting on my chest. Jake, Darius' friend, started visiting less. Melissa told me he'd overheard Darius say, "Watch me break him." The air felt heavy. I didn't know what to believe, but my instincts were screaming. Then came the day I returned from therapy to find Rex outside, gate open, limping, bleeding from his paw. Darius claimed he must have escaped. Georgia panicked, but avoided eye contact. I rushed Rex to Sarah, our vet tech friend. She said the cut looked deliberate, like glass. I asked Darius directly. He shrugged. Dogs are dumb. That night, I watched him from the window, laughing on the phone. My hands trembled with something close to rage. I set the trap with Marcus' help. I installed cameras near Rex's area. 2 nights later, the footage played. Darius shaking a bottle, luring Rex, then silence, then the gate. I showed Georgia the video. She turned pale. No, she whispered, but she didn't deny it. I didn't wait. I took the video to Helen. Her lips pressed tight. Enough, she said. The confrontation was coming and it would tear everything open. We gathered in Helen's living room. Georgia, Helen, Marcus, even Sarah. I pressed play on the footage. Darius stood frozen, his bravado cracking. It's fake. He stammered, but Melissa arrived, phone in hand. Jake told me everything, she said. Her voice shook. Georgia covered her mouth. Darius shouted, knocking over a lamp. You all are crazy. But the room had shifted. The truth wasn't hidden anymore, and Darius knew he'd lost control. Georgia collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming. I protected a monster, she whispered. Helen handed her tissues but kept her distance. I stared at Darius, his face twisted in resentment, not regret. You planned this, I said. He didn't deny it. Marcus stepped between us. You need to leave, he told Darius. For the first time, Georgia didn't argue. The decision was hers, and she finally made the right one. Rex deserved that justice. Darius packed his things that night. Georgia stood in the hallway, eyes rimmed red but unmoving. He turned once. You'll regret this, he said. No one replied. I took Rex's collar from the hook and placed it in my palm as he walked out. The metal felt cold, heavy, a symbol of everything I'd lost, and what I was finally reclaiming. That door closing wasn't silence. It was survival, ours, not his. The next morning, the house was still. Georgia slept in the guest room. I placed Rex's collar by the door, a daily reminder of resilience. Marcus helped me enroll in a veteran dog rescue. You're not done healing, he said. And he was right. I wasn't, but I was beginning. The war inside our walls had ended, and I was still standing, not whole but stronger than Darius ever expected me to be. 2 weeks later, Georgia found a flash drive in Darius's whole desk drawer. Curiosity 1, she plugged it in and called me. Voice trembling. You need to see this. Files, dozens, shelter forms, euthanasia protocols, emails to fake accounts. It wasn't impulse, it was strategy. Each file had dates, names, some linked to shelters we'd called after Rex vanished. My hand shook. Darius hadn't just heard us. He's practiced, perfected cruelty. Rex wasn't the first, he was the last. Helen turned the flash drive over to the authorities. Detective Ramos confirmed what we feared. Darius had a digital trail stretching back years. Georgia stood frozen as Ramos read off names of shelters and missing pet reports from our area. He was experimenting, Ramos said, testing reactions, loopholes. It wasn't just a family issue now, it was criminal. And while Georgia wept, I felt something colder resolve. This wasn't about revenge, it was about stopping him forever. Jake stepped forward with screenshot texts from Darius bragging about fooling the vet guy and manipulating shelter staff. Melissa backed him, saying Darius once joked, Rex is just practice. The cruelty echoed. The police opened an investigation, linking him to 2 prior euthanasia cases, same fakeids. Georgia's hands trembled as she signed a statement. Her denial had shattered. I told her, you saw it too late, but at least you saw it. Justice, though slow, had begun moving. Sarah offered a silent apology. Eyes damp. I shouldn't have seen it sooner, she whispered. She volunteered to speak with the her notes, the injury photos, even Rex's behavior logs. Every piece mattered now. Melissa's footage of Darius mocking Rex was added to the case. A pattern was forming, undeniable, and the weight lifted, not fully but enough. I wasn't alone anymore, others had joined the fight. Rex's story wasn't just grief, it had become evidence. The biggest shock came from Evelyn, Darice's grandmother. She handed Georgia a dusty notebook, Darice's childhood journal. Inside were sketches of dogs, cusks over some, detailed stories of how they disappeared. Evelyn had dismissed it as fantasy, but now she sobbed. He'd been broken for years. I held the journal, bow rising. You all looked away, I said. The truth was grotesque, but undeniable, and with it, we finally saw Darice for who he truly was. Georgia asked to visit Darice one supervised meeting before the court date. I watched from the other side of the glass. She placed Rex's photo on the table. He saved Nathan, she said. And you destroyed that. Darice laughed, hollow and cold. He was just a dog. She didn't flinch. No, he was my husband's soul. That day, she walked out without a single glance back. And I knew she was finally grieving the right loss. Darice was transferred to a juvenile psych unit pending charges. His friends disappeared. Jake faced bullying for speaking out. But Melissa shielded him fiercely. You did the right thing, I told him at the courthouse. Even when no one else would. He nodded, eyes glassy. The ripple of Darice's cruelty had touched too many. But now, there was a current pushing back truth, courage, accountability. It didn't undo the pain, but it made sure it mattered. One day Marcus brought over Rosie, a rescued golden retriever with scars on her legs and fear in her eyes. She needs purpose, he said. Rosie didn't trust me at first, but slowly, she began sitting by my chair, following me to the porch. One night, she placed her head on my chest, just like Rex used to. My breath steadied and my heart ached, but something opened. Healing didn't erase Rex, it let his legacy expand. Georgia moved out 2 weeks after Rosie arrived. No argument, just a letter on the counter. I need to repair myself too. I didn't chase her. I reread the line 3 times, not out of sorrow but recognition. We'd both failed to act. Now we were rebuilding separately. Marcus dropped by with food. Helen called more. Even Evelyn sent old photos of Rex, labeled with dates and notes. The silence in the house now felt earned. Rosie began her service dog training slowly, steps forward, setbacks. But one day, we visited a local shelter event. A young girl had a panic attack near the kennels. Rosie broke from me gently, nuzzled the girl's hand. Calm washed over her like magic. The shelter coordinator stared. Geez, got it, she whispered. I smiled. This wasn't about replacing Rex, it was about legacy. Purpose, continuity. Rosie wasn't healing just me, she was meant for more. At a community memorial for therapy animals, they asked me to speak. I hesitated, but Rosie sat at my feet, eyes steady. I told Rex's story, not of his death, but his life, how he grounded me. How Darice tried to erase him, and how Rosie now carried that light forward. Tears fell freely in the room. One woman whispered, my son needs that hope, and in that moment, I realized Rex wasn't just mine anymore. Helen surprised me with a framed shadow backs Rex's collar, a paw print, and Rosie's photo beneath. You turned your pain into purpose, she said. I choked up. For so long, everything felt broken. But now, people were learning from our loss. Georgia emailed once apologizing, sharing she's started trauma counseling. It wasn't closure, but it was a shift. Rex was gone, but his presence had sparked movement, grief into healing, harm into change. And that mattered deeply. The local paper ran our story, Veteran Turns Loss into Therapy Mission. Photos of Rosie and Rex reached strangers. I received letters, other survivors. Silent for years, now finding courage. One vet wrote, it gave me permission to feel again. Marcus smiled when I read it aloud. You're building a new unit, he said, and it clicked. This wasn't just my recovery, it was a chain reaction. Rex had lit the first spark. Rosie now carried the torch. One night, Rosie woke me during a nightmare, pressing her weight gently on my chest. I gasped, grounded instantly, just like Rex used to. I whispered, good girl, tears spilling. In the quiet that followed, I realized the nightmare wasn't about Darice anymore. It was about losing purpose, and now, with Rosie, that purpose was reborn. She curled beside me, not a replacement, a partner, and in that moment I knew the war had truly ended. Sarah nominated Rosie and me for the Community Hero Award at the ceremony. I wore my Marine pin. Rosie sat proudly by my side. When they called our names, I froze, then stepped forward. This honor belongs to a dog who isn't here, I said, but his legacy walks beside me every day. The crowd stood, applauding not just me but every scar, every choice to heal. I wasn't a victim anymore, I was a guide. Rosie and I visited the juvenile center one last time, not for Darice but for a support group of teens inside. I told them my story, how pain twisted one life and healed another. One boy asked, how do you forgive? I paused. You don't, you outgrow the wound. When we left, a counselor said, you gave them something rare, accountability with hope. I looked at Rosie, she gave it to me first, and that was the truth. I still reach for Rex's collar sometimes, fingers brushing its worn leather. It's not grief anymore, it's gratitude. He carried me through darkness, now I carry his mission. Rosie sits by my feet, sensing my shifts, offering calm without command. We volunteer at the VA twice a week. The men call her Sergeant Fluff. I laugh every time. Healing didn't erase the pain, it rewired it. The boy who tried to destroy me gave me purpose. I didn't forgive him, I outgrew him, and that's something no cruelty can touch. Georgia and I exchange emails sometimes. No blame, just two people who survived the same storm. She adopted a cat, says the silence feels less hollow now. I told her about Rosie's new vest and the little girl we helped last week. She replied, that sounds like peace. Maybe it is, or maybe it's just motion forward. Always, I stopped needing answers. I started building impact. Rex's collar still hangs at my door, but Rosie's leash is what I reach for every morning. That's my direction now, that's my anchor, and it's enough. Darice pled guilty to multiple counts of animal cruelty. The court ordered long-term psychiatric care and a permanent ban on pet ownership. At sentencing, the judge referenced Rex by name. This wasn't just cruelty, it was calculated grief. Helen sat beside me, Georgia was across the aisle. No glares, just finality. The past didn't vanish, but accountability landed outside. The sky cracked open with rain. I held Rosie's leash tighter. It's over, I whispered, and for the first time in years I believed it. Justice had spoken, and we had survived. 6 months later, Rosie and I launched Rex Reach, a nonprofit pairing veterans with rescue animals. Sarah joined as lead vet. Marcus mentors new dog handler pairs, Helen fundraises, even Jake volunteers, walking dogs with quiet resolve. Our network grows weekly. We place collars gently around healed necks and wounded hearts. Every match reminds me pain when channeled, creates power. Georgia donated Rex's favorite blanket for our office couch. He'd want this, she wrote. And I agree. We turn trauma into action. That's our legacy now. That's Rex's lasting gift to the world. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.